Okay, let's try and get our heads around this one. It's a bit of a nutritional head scratcher, isn't it? You've probably done it yourself. You're in the health aisle. You grab that bottle of vitamin E, classic supplement, right? You think, great, doing something good for myself.
Yeah.
But then, bam, you stumble across some article saying, hang on, vitamin E might actually, I don't know, increase your risk of something nasty like heart problems. It's like finding out your super reliable old car occasionally decides to just drive itself into a lake. Makes no sense.
It is incredibly confusing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, the reason it's so confusing is that people have been working with only half the information, basically half the map.
Right.
Vitamin E is crucial. I mean, totally essential for our health. But, yeah, these conflicting reports have been muddying the waters for years. So our goal today, really, is to slice through that confusion. We want to lay out the one key fact that, honestly, makes all those contradictions start to make sense.
Right. So it helps. It hurts. Oh, what's the missing piece? What fundamental thing did early research miss that explains this whole mess?
The whole paradox really just, it dissolves once you grasp this one thing. Vitamin E isn't a single substance. It's actually a family of 8 different distinct molecules. This was figured out way back, like in 1964. But somehow that memo didn't quite reach the public or most of the supplement manufacturers, apparently.
A family. Okay, I like that. But like any family, you've got your steady eddies and then your absolute superstars. So who are the main branches here, the ones we really need to know?
Exactly. You've got the group that's everywhere, the one that's been studied the most. Those are the tocopherols. We can call them tocopherols for short. And then you have the real heavy hitters, the ones often overlooked but way more potent, the tocotrienols. Or trienols.
Tocopherols, trienols. Okay. So if we're talking about their power, their antioxidant punch, fighting off those free radicals, is it a small difference? Or are we talking night and day?
Oh, it's a huge gap, a canyon, really. If you compare them directly, the trienols are just vastly more powerful antioxidants than the tocols. Their structure lets them neutralize damage much more effectively, especially in certain specific body tissues. But the real kicker is why we spent decades focusing almost entirely on the weaker team member.
Yeah, that's the weird part, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which leads us straight into this alpha-tocopherol trap, as you called it. Why did science and basically every cheap vitamin bottle out there put all its money on this one specific, less potent tocopherol?
That is a great question. And the answer is, well, it's partly about economics, partly just historical accident, you know. When scientists first started isolating these compounds, alpha-tocopherol was just the most common one they found. It was abundant, cheap, easiest to get hold of and study initially, so naturally they studied that. And the result, decades of research, a massive supplement industry, all built around the most available, cheapest component. It created this huge blind spot for the really powerful trienols.
So it's like we grabbed the first person who walked into the room and made them the star, completely ignoring the superhero waiting just outside the door.
Pretty much, yeah. And that cheapness, that easy availability, led straight to the next big problem, this pro-oxidant twist. It turns out, when you isolate alpha-tocopherol, especially the synthetic stuff, but even the natural form sometimes, and you give it all by itself, without its family, it can actually flip. It can stop protecting and start causing problems.
Hold on. It turns.
Yeah.
It goes from antioxidant to pro-oxidant. It actually goes rogue and starts creating cellular damage instead of stopping it. That sounds like taking a health supplement that might just, randomly explode inside you. Metaphorically speaking, of course.
Well, it's chemically possible, yeah. When it's ripped away from its natural context, its buddies, it can get kind of unstable.
Yeah.
Without the full complex backing it up, that isolated molecule can get stuck in this damaged state. So instead of neutralizing a free radical, it can actually kick off new ones. This instability is likely why you see all those confusing studies showing harm. They were testing this stressed out, isolated molecule that just couldn't do its job properly alone.
Okay, wow. So if the tocals can turn traitor when they're lonely, we clearly need something better. Let's talk about the trienols then, the superstars. What's their secret sauce? What makes their structure so much better?
It really comes down to their shape, their molecular structure. Tocals have this long, kind of stiff tail. Think of them as a bit bulky. Trienols, though, they have shorter, more flexible carbon tails. And that difference, it seems small, but it's huge at the cellular level. They're like, well, ninjas compared to sumo wrestlers.
Ninjas versus sumo wrestlers. I love it. Okay, why does being a molecular ninja matter here?
Because that shorter, flexible tail lets them move faster. They can slip into dense fatty tissues, places like the brain, the liver, even deep inside arterial plaque much more easily than the bulky tomacols can. It's the structural advantage that really explains why they're proving so valuable for things like neuroprotection and tissue repair.
Ah, okay. That suddenly makes the whole neuroprotection angle click.
Yeah.
If trienols can get into the brain's fatty tissue better, that explains why they might help with oxidative damage in diseases like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's.
Exactly. And it's not just about protecting against chronic stuff, it's also about acute repair. There's active research looking into using trienols right after a stroke, for instance, to help repair damage and preserve brain function in that critical time frame.
Right, and we also saw stuff about longevity. If they protect cells that effectively, it kind of makes sense they could be anti-aging too.
And the anti-aging connection is definitely strong. There were those animal studies showing they could boost lifespan by, what was it, up to 19%. And it's not magic, it's just fundamentally about reducing that overall cellular wear and tear, that oxidation, which is a key driver of the aging process itself.
Okay, let's switch gears to the heart and arteries, the cardiovascular system. You mentioned trienols acting like a sort of cleanup crew in the arteries. What exactly are they doing to that oxidized LDL, the bad cholesterol?
Right. So when LDL cholesterol gets oxidized, its chemical structure changes. It becomes damaged goods. Think of it like a package that the postal system, your body doesn't recognize anymore. It can't be processed correctly, so it just hangs around, gets sticky. And that sticky altered LDL is what triggers inflammation and starts building up those nasty atherosclerotic plaques in the artery walls.
And the trienols come in and basically, what, neutralize that sticky damage structure?
Yes, exactly. They seem to target that oxidized LDL directly, calming down the inflammation it causes. It's kind of similar in effect to how statins work on that specific trigger. That study you mentioned showing really dramatic decreases in those arterial lesions in just 6 months and them being barely detectable after 18 months. That's pretty phenomenal evidence of that cleanup power.
And it's not just the pipes, right? The sources suggested they actually protect the heart muscle, too.
That's a really critical point, yeah. Trienols seem to help the heart muscle tissue itself by improving its ability to use oxygen. A lot of heart attacks happen because the muscle cramps up from a lack of oxygen. So by boosting oxygen efficiency, trienols might reduce that risk. It's support beyond just keeping the arteries clear.
Wow. Okay, given all this focus on fighting massive oxidative stress, this sounds like something anyone who really pushes their body, athletes maybe, should know about.
Oh, absolutely. After intense exercise, the oxidative stress in your body is, it's literally off the charts. Trienols could significantly help with recovery. It's probably why you hear about people doing high-altitude training, like mountaineers or serious athletes supplementing with vitamin E complexes. The oxidative load at high altitudes is just immense.
And we definitely can't skip that almost sci-fi detail you mentioned, the military being interested in trienols for radiation protection.
Yeah, that just shows how profound their protective effect might be. Research actually suggests trienols could help mitigate damage even from potentially lethal doses of radiation. It really highlights their role as a powerful cellular shield. And sort of related to that, they also seem great for preventing scar tissue formation, slowing down how inflammation progresses into fibrosis in organs, like helping prevent the liver moving towards cirrhosis, for example.
Okay, it honestly sounds like trienols are the answer to, well, almost everything. But if they're this good, why aren't they everywhere? Why aren't they cheap and loaded into every fortified food?
And that brings us right back to the practicalities, the supply chain problem. Trienols are just significantly more expensive and much harder to source in large quantities compared to the tolicols.
Right, so we can't just completely write off the tonicols then. What advantages do they still bring to the table? Why are they still important?
They are definitely still important. They play a key role in overall cell membrane stability, kind of general protection against everyday oxidative stress in common tissues. Plus, the big advantage is they're incredibly easy to get from your diet. Think green leafy vegetables with chlorophyll, seeds, nuts, olives, olive oil, all great sources of tolicols. Easy peasy.
Okay. And what if someone wants to actively hunt down those superpowered trienols, maybe without just buying a supplement? Where do you find them?
Naturally. The sources are pretty limited and, yeah, often expensive. The absolute best natural source is unrefined red palm oil. That stuff is amazing. It's naturally about 70% trienols and 30% tosicols, a great blend. You can also find them in an auto extract, but, most people aren't exactly chugging a natto daily.
Okay, so tocolos are common. Trienols are the specialized ninjas. Should we just hedge our bets and take a supplement that chucks both of them into one pill. Mix and match.
Well, that's where you need to be a bit careful. There's this competition warning idea floating around. Some data still needs more verification, maybe, but it suggests tocotrienols and trienols might actually compete with each other when you take them together.
Compete? How? Like fighting for space.
Essentially, yeah. Fighting over the transport system. The theory goes something like this. Tocopherols are way more abundant, right? And they get absorbed pretty easily. So they might basically hog all the transport proteins. Think of them like little delivery trucks that are needed to move vitamin E around the body. If the tocopherols grab all the trucks first, then the potent trienols might not get delivered efficiently to the tissues where they're most needed, like the brain or liver. That could be why sometimes targeted, isolated trienol supplements seem particularly effective for certain issues.
Huh. That is really interesting context. But this leads us to something you touched on earlier, the teamwork factor. Because in nature, vitamin E never works alone, does it?
Never, ever. This is crucial. If you're taking high doses of vitamin E, doesn't matter if it's tocol or trienol, you absolutely have to understand how it gets recycled in the body. Think of vitamin E as the frontline soldier, the shield that intercepts the free radical attack. But when it does its job, when it neutralizes that threat, the vitamin E molecule itself gets, well, damaged or used up in the process.
So the shield takes a hit and needs fixing, like immediately.
Precisely. And the repair crew for that shield, that's vitamin C. Vitamin C is essential to instantly recycle and recharge that vitamin E molecule so it can go back into battle. If you're just hammering vitamin E supplements but you're low on vitamin C, you're essentially sending a soldier out with a single-use shield. You risk creating a situation where your best antioxidant defender gets stuck in that damaged state and, yeah, potentially even becomes a pro-oxidant itself.
Wow. Okay, so the big takeaway here seems pretty clear. Vitamin E isn't inherently confusing. We just got introduced to one member of the family that tocotrienols first, and maybe unfairly judged the whole clan based on how that one member behaved when it was isolated and stressed out. The key is looking for the whole complex, or maybe strategically targeting the most potent part, the trienols.
Yeah.
Especially if you're dealing with specific inflammation or high oxidative stress situations.
Exactly. And this completely changes how we should think about supplementation, doesn't it? We know these complex blends often work in ways we can't necessarily feel day to day, working deeper at the cellular level. So maybe instead of just grabbing any old bottle off the shelf because it says vitamin E and it's cheap, we should be thinking more about our own specific vulnerabilities, our inflammatory markers, maybe family history of heart issues, even genetic predispositions. And then decide if we need more targeted support, like maybe a high-quality trienol blend.
Yeah, it shifts the whole game from just generic health maintenance to something much more like a targeted surgical strike against cellular damage. So, knowing all this, the question for you listening is, are you taking a vitamin complex that's actually designed to work synergistically? Or are you maybe just, well, recycling confusion? Something to think about